You're listening to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast, the show with a light-hearted look at the eventing world, all of the big event previews, reviews, and special guests, and of course, backed up with all of the key Echo Rating stats. Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast. Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast and a very special episode for you listeners. This one's a little bit different because it is a show jumping special. And Sam Watson is with me. Sam, I'm looking forward to this one because we have two absolutely cracking guests to join us to talk about the crossover between eventing and show jumping and data in show jumping as well.
Yeah, it should be fun, Nicole. Yeah, I've off air you were trying to recruit them to eventing as well, so I think it's going to be an interesting conversation talking about the crossover between the two. So yeah, looking forward to the different perspective.
I'm definitely nearly there with one of them. I'll start by introducing our first guest. She represented Team GBR at the World Equestrian Games a couple of years ago and led them to Team Bronze at the Europeans last year. One eye firmly on Tokyo 2021. A very warm welcome to Holly Smith.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
Holly, we are looking forward to talking all things show jumping and eventing with you. But we are also joined by one of the brightest young stars in show jumping. He comes from a show jumping dynasty, if I can call it that. He has medalled at young rider level. He is a fellow podcaster as well for the Full Course Show Jumping podcast. Welcome to the show, Will Fletcher.
Hi guys, nice to meet you. Happy to be on.
Will, we're looking forward to this. And you have been doing some eventing homework, I understand.
Yes, I've been doing my best to try and get my knowledge a little bit more up to scratch. I sort of panicked a couple of days ago and thought I don't quite know enough. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. I know who you think would have done well this year. A couple of your greatest podcasts I've really enjoyed, actually. So I'll be able to put in a little bit of input.
Oh, that's all right. We'll only quiz you at the end of the show. It's fine. Okay, let's start because actually both of you have a very current link to eventing in so much as two of your top horses both actually started their careers in the eventing field before turning their sort of hooves to top level show jumping. Well, I'll start with you first because actually your top horse at the moment is Persimmon, who went to the European Championships in 2015 with Kitty King, finished fourth individually there, and also was part of the British team who won a silver medal. So he's actually made the sort of career change, so to speak. Went to you back in 2017, is that right?
I think it was, yeah.
How was his sort of transition into the show jumping field?
Well, when we got him, I mean, I don't know if anyone knows, but he's extremely small. Like he's 15.1, 15.2 at a push. And, we thought he'd be like a really nice little speed horse and you could get on and win a couple of classes. And then sort of as time went on, we're like, oh, he's got, a bit more scope here. And we pushed him and he just kept on getting better and has gone and turned into the horse of a lifetime for me, which is fantastic because I think at the end he decided that dressage wasn't quite the one for him. And I think I agree with him. So we get on pretty well.
I think I'm right in saying he's the first horse on record to jump on a Nations Cup team in both pure show jumping and eventing.
That is my record, and I've looked and tried to find, some of the older horses that have done well in both. And I know Hydrophane Coldstream, which Derek Ricketts rode and won Olympic gold medal with. He did very well in eventing before he changed over, but I don't know if he went on a senior team like Percy did with Kitty. And just talking about, before he came on, I hadn't actually ever watched him jump cross country, so I looked at some YouTube videos on him. He's an absolute machine. I can't believe a horse that threw me off at the water at Hickstead is going through all the waters in cross country. It's unbelievable.
Tell us the water story at Hickstead, because that sounds like something he was a bit cheeky about.
Yeah, he is a very, very cheeky character. I mean, just the other day, we'd given him a bit of a break and I just went to pop over a Cavaletti and he just stopped, slapped me off and I went flying and he was just stood there laughing at me. And that's sort of his sort of character. So we came to Hickstead. He was actually jumping amazing in the Queens and I was like 3 fences from home with the water, and he's actually a really good water jumper and jumped it a bit too high. If anything, he's pretty awesome. So I went at it. Wasn't too worried about it. And about 3 strides away, he was like, not feeling this one, don't want to go eventing again. See you later. And I toppled off the side, which was really sad for me because it was my first time on, Sky Sports TV and everything like that. And I was first to go, so everyone was watching. And it was absolutely gutting. Poor old person.
I bet you made all of the highlights programs and everything, though.
Yes.
Probably the closing credits too.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, but he's a great guy, and like we have such good relationship, and I'm extremely lucky that they almost just gave him to me to have keep him. I think he had enough of eventing, and he wanted to go canter around with his head stuck out everywhere. So, which he's thoroughly enjoying at the moment.
It's so nice to see them go on and have such a successful second career because, actually, he was so close to a medal individually at the Blair Europeans, which were a tough old Europeans, Sam. You were there, and it wasn't just sort of your average cross-country day there. It was tough. And then we don't often see, we're going to talk about another one of them in a moment, but we don't often see horses go top-level eventing to top-level show jumping with that deal of success.
No, you couldn't have picked a more eventing championship than Blair, like up in Scotland on the hills, rain pouring down. It was not many people actually turned up to watch cross country. It was that bad a day. And Percy was fantastic that day. But I was on a breeding webinar yesterday, and it's pretty unheard of, and if you were to rewind the clock maybe 20 years, you wouldn't think that a horse would ever go that direction, to go from eventing to be successful at eventing and then have the ability to go show jumping, because we had such more kind of thoroughbred types, and a lot of the thoroughbreds are beautiful movers and obviously brilliant athletes as well, but their design of their jump is just such a more forward horizontal trajectory than that vertical power that you need. But I just think it's a sign of the times. Our eventing has become much more of a skill sport, much more of a power sport. We've taken out a lot of the distance, a lot of the stamina's come out, so we've seen less thoroughbred. It's causing a bit of a conflict then at 5-star. We're seeing less horses being able to make the time at 5-star. But we're just seeing these horses that are they're serious athletes. Like we have such a high criteria. We used to kind of happily put our hands up and take the dregs when it came to horses. We were like, sure, yeah, well, failed racehorse, failed show jumper, failed anything, give it to us. We'll see what we can turn them into. Now, though, we look for serious athletes with serious power. And that's why maybe that crossover, maybe we will see a little bit more of it, because the eventers want it. And we're playing with slightly better budgets as well. We're not quite as poor as we used to be, even though we profess to be all the time. But so it'll be interesting. But Percy, hell of an athlete, and just so interesting to see that. And I just wonder, will we see more of it in future? I'm not expecting frequency now. I just think it's possibly a more conceivable idea, whereas you could never have thought of it probably 20 years ago.
We actually have got a lot of horses on the yard that have moved from eventing into show jumping. I think half my horses have done eventing of some description, and
interesting.
Yeah, one of my two of my better horses especially did quite a bit of eventing. One went to the 7-year-olds World Championships, and he came to me a little bit after that, and he's looking like a really, really nice horse. And I think it is something that's happening now. They're getting a bit more the same sort of breed, aren't they? And it's something interesting. And I think Holly's has definitely shown that it can be done even at the top level.
I think the other thing in eventing as well is actually there is no room to have a pole down on the final day anymore. You can't, it's rare that you can actually get away with that sort of mistake. So you're looking for those better jumpers all the time, which probably adds to it as well. Holly, let's talk about Denver, who is one of your top horses at the moment. Actually had a very recent career change because was campaigned up to 4-star level by Connie Cope-State, the young French rider. Yeah. And he sort of went on a seriously quick upward trajectory. He was top 5 at Chatsworth with Connie last year, went to Bramham in the under 25s. Then, so that was sort of beginning of June. Then by July, he was jumping at a 5-star show in Barcelona with you.
Yeah, he was. He's a truly wonderful horse. He has exceeded our expectations in the height that he's jumping. But I did always, from the first sort of week I sat on him, I did always think that he would win ranking classes. And he did that even quicker than most of us thought he would. So, yeah, I'm just delighted to have him.
The one thing that I find particularly fascinating about him is he went from being a top level event horse to actually he was part of the string that you took to Olympia last year. One leading rider, but he was a big part of that. And actually that is a really, really tight arena. It's so atmospheric. You've got massive crowds, nothing that he would have ever seen eventing. Yeah. How did he take to that?
Yeah, he was fine. He was actually more difficult in the stables when he was there. Obviously, there's a lot going on at Olympia, the household cavalry, everything like that. So I think he did spend most of his time at Olympia in earplugs. But the first day, the first class that he jumped was a 150 speed class, and I walked in. I thought, this is pretty tough. I thought a lot of him. He'd done very well, but again, this was completely different to anything that we'd done before. And I sort of took a relatively steady start, and after 3 fences, I thought this feels really good. Put my foot down a bit, and he was just brilliant every day. I don't think he had a fence down when he was there. He very rarely has a fence down, actually. We formed a great partnership.
How did it come about in sort of his move from eventing to show jumping with you?
Di Lampard trained Connie show jumping.
Okay.
So she'd known the horse for quite a while. And also Emily Chandler, who helps me on the flat, she had ridden the horse at a few points during his career as well to help Connie, so she knew the horse. And Connie had decided that it wasn't a good fit for her, and that they felt strongly that show jumping was the route that was most suited for the horse. So he came to me to be tried for a few weeks and to see what we thought. And I loved him from day one. And Ian Dowie very kindly stepped in to buy him for me. Ian was great because, it wasn't a cheap horse, but Ian just went on our recommendation and took a chance like Ian does, and it really paid off. And we've had, some great shows with him.
What's the plan with him? Do you think he's a future championship horse?
That's what we're aiming him for. Obviously, I've got Heart's Destiny in the stable as well, who, God willing, if he's sound and on good form, it'd be a very hard horse not to have on the team. But I think Denver, yes, that's what we are aiming him for. That's what we've got in mind. And we all know with horses, a lot of things go wrong. So to have 2 horses to aim, it's a great boost to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was only an 11-year-old last year when he sort of made his career change. I mean, even Persimmon isn't an old horse now. I mean, Blair was 5 years ago, but he went there as a 10-year-old. So he's only, I think, 15 this time. Holly, can I ask you, because Sam joked about I was trying to convert you to be an eventer at the start of this show. There is every chance that I could be successful in that mission.
I wouldn't take a lot of convincing. I've always loved eventing. I've watched it, throughout my life. I absolutely love watching badminton and Burley. I would absolutely love to have a go.
Holly, you should have a bet in the bar with Michael Young at the next show you're at. God knows when that will be. But see whether he can represent Germany on the show jumping team or you can represent GB on the eventing team first. We'll see who converts fastest.
Yeah, I mean,
didn't Michael jump in the 5-star team that Hicks did?
He did in the Nations Cup, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking championship, but you're right. Yeah, I'm thinking championship. It's a good point.
He'd be a tough man to bet against, to be honest. I'd be quite nervous about my money. But
2 tough teams to get into.
Yeah, very tough teams to get into, actually.
True.
I think he did himself. I don't think he did himself any a disservice at Hickstead. I think he went rather well. But let's talk about a horse, because you've actually got an event horse that you were hoping to campaign this year, alongside obviously the original aim, which was Tokyo 2020, which is obviously everything has gone out the window. But you started at the beginning of the year a little bit unsure as to how he was going to take it. Went to Iceland, so you've had one event. How did that go? Mexican is the horse in question.
Yeah, well, he went great, apart from I knocked a show jump down.
Ollie.
I know. It was number 2 as well, so I was very nervous for the rest of the course. Actually, it really makes me laugh whenever I'm eventing. I get very, very nervous about the show jumping because it's the expectation. That's a little bit my character, which is interesting. It was a very long round for the rest of it.
Was he, am I right in thinking he was a show jumper before he sort of has started?
Yeah, so he was bred at Western Lawns, a show centre near me, and we actually bought him as a hunter for my husband Graham. And I went to exercise him one day and sat on him. I thought, "Oh, this is really nice." So I go up for training with Caroline Moore quite a bit. I have my show jumpers, and then we always have a few horses to produce and to sell. Don't like to have all my eggs in one basket, so I took him up there a couple of times, and he went very, very well. And I took him to Emily a few times on the flat, and he was going very well. So I decided to go for it. He gave me, fantastic feeling, and he feels like one for the top. Whether it will be with me or not, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But no point making any rash decisions at the moment.
No, well, his debut went very well because you finished second, but you finished second to Peaky March. So, I mean, that's as good as a win, basically.
Yes.
We can absolutely take that. So you mentioned badminton and Burley a little bit earlier on. Is that the ultimate aim at some point in the future? I appreciate, obviously, you've got your jumping to think about as well, but would you really like to go 5-star?
I would absolutely love to. I've watched it for my whole life, and it would just be great. I'd love to have a go, and you only live once, don't you? You've got to do what you enjoy.
You absolutely
I also enjoy show jumping as well.
Yes, and you're very, very good at it. So we've no doubt that you could go to the top in both. But Will, have you ever been tempted by eventing?
I used to do a bit in my pony club days, but my mum used to hide when I did a dressage test because they were that awful. I'd regularly score between 40 and 50, maybe over 50. It was really tough watching, but I used to love to gallop around the cross country as quickly as I could. But unfortunately, a solid 18th place after people who've done 2 stops, even though I jumped double clear, didn't make me keep doing it.
No, doesn't fill you with the eventing bug. I love that your mum hid for the dressage. Most mums in Pony Club hide for the cross country.
I'd hide for the dressage if I could, for my own dressage.
She used to hide with me when I jumped. I was that bad. She was so embarrassed that I was jumping in the ring. She'd just try and walk away and not be there when I came out the ring, which is a bit mean. But luckily I've improved a little bit since then. So.
I was going to say, she doesn't do that anymore, does she?
Well, I really hope not. She seems to be there when I come out the ring, so
she might have if she might have if she had seen Persimmon dump you over a Cavaletti the other day.
Yeah, that caused a lot of laughs.
Let's talk about sort of equa ratings and data in show jumping, because Sam, I know recently we've been talking about it. We did a show for equa ratings 5th birthday about the hope that actually in the future there will be a sort of a move and developments in the show jumping world as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's quite a natural progression. The reason we started equa ratings and we do what we do, I mean, we're not a feed company that tries to do something a little bit different to other feed companies. We're not a saddle company that tries to make a slightly better or slightly cheaper saddle. Like we believe in a better way of solving problems in the sport. A lot of the way that British cycling changed their approach and went very data driven. Baseball, obviously, the whole game changed and went very data driven. A lot of sports now they're using tech and data in loads of different ways. So we brought that into eventing. That obviously with the risk management is not so much transferable, but in terms of managing performance and improving the fan experience, I think there is a better way to do that in show jumping as well. Like the how we've done it is I think, people throw those words data and technology get thrown around loads, and they fail so frequently because people don't have that domain experience and that domain intuition. You've got to be able, you don't just come in with a tool and go, here, use this. You got to apply it with a bit of intuition is probably the best word, and understand how it can be applied. And that served us pretty well, like kind of knowing the sport and stuff. And I mean, Nicole, you're a big part of eventing manager and things like that, but and we'll probably bring a show jumping manager out, but that's where you give fans more information on the people in the sport. And we're a real information, we're so information hungry. We can't watch Wimbledon without knowing first serve percentages and break points won and tie breaks lost. And, we're just consistently consuming it. And I think, people kind of crave that. They want to understand it. We're in information age. And if people can't understand anything, or they're not getting any information on anything, and they're just watching a horse jump over a fence and not getting much context about it, about, knowing who was ranked where, who, you've read out 2 pretty impressive CVs today, just even having that information and being able to find it. So that's your fan stuff. And I'd love to bring that into show jumping as well, because it's so much easier, so much more continuity. Like there's a 5-star show every weekend. The top riders are out every weekend. Top horses are out way more frequently than event horses. So it's really set up to be a much cooler sport to follow. And plus, you don't have to set everyone through that dressage test that Will's mum wanted to hide for as well. So we've got that side. What will be interesting is to kind of throw the performance approach in front of Will and Holly and see what they think. I mean, the way we've done that there is if you want to manage performance rather than just everyone's trying to get better all the time. It doesn't matter whether you're an amateur golfer or whatever. But if you say to yourself, right, I take my performance seriously, it means, and I'm gonna manage it. Rule number 1 of any form of management is to measure. So whether you are a company that's trying to earn more money, you look at your accounts, you look at where you are spending money, where you are taking in money, what your costs are, and you look at your accounts, you measure. If you want to lose, if you were into weight management, not just trying to lose weight, but actually you're an athlete and it matters because you're, say, a boxer or something like that, or a jockey, you get on a weighing scales. You have to measure if you want to manage properly, because then you know what works, what gives you effective gains. Because there's always a big difference between what we think is helping us improve and actually what's actually helping us to improve. And also there's chance at play. So, sometimes you can, I mean, even when you go and try a horse and you sit on a horse and, you jump it and it was, God, gave you a great feeling, and then you bring it home and actually it's not jumping so well. There might be other reasons for that, but you got to be wary of just one kind of sample, one result. So a real kind of implementable basic start for people. We always say, you need 2 things. You need to know where you are now, and you need to set a target. That's the basis of any journey, isn't it? Know where you are now and have a destination, and then you can start to plan a route. Easy way to do that is to calculate an average of your recent performances. In eventing, we have a really simple number called your SJ6, which is just your average of your last 6 show jumping rounds. It's 6 in eventing because you need enough of a sample to gauge what the true level of performance is. But like in international eventing, we only see horses on average about 3 times a year. In show jumping, you could probably span that out to about your last 10 results and get a good feel of where your horse is at. That then is a good, accurate kind of summary of where you are. Say it's around 2 penalties. You're kind of averaging between a clear and 1 down. You're in that kind of area. Then you're setting a target saying, well, in 5 runs time, or in I keep talking about runs because I'm at eventing, but in 5 rounds time or in 10 rounds time, after my next 10 competitions, I want that to be down at 1.5. Your target should be measurable. It should be, so not just go, my goal and my target is that I want to improve. that doesn't work. It's not accountable enough. So set a measurable target, which is why improving your average is really effective. So I'm going to bring it from 2 down to 1.5. It needs to be achievable, which that kind of a gap is. Like if you are averaging 8 penalties over 10 rounds, which means you are averaging 2 down every time, which means you're probably having 4 down some days. Don't go, I want to average, 0.5 over 10 rounds, which is really, really hard for even the best horse in the world to average down that low. So it's got to be achievable. It got to be controllable. So we always steer people away from wins. Wins, you can win a class because everyone else in the class was rubbish. The course wasn't up to height. It was really, whatever. There's loads of uncontrollable aspects to that. And mainly the thing around winning and things like that is that it depends on how others perform. So try and keep it to your own performance. Because there's nothing worse than improving loads, doing a really good job, and you go and line up against Holly and Will and whoever, the Whitaker 105 of them.
Which one I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. And you actually, you perform really well, but you finished 12th and you actually jumped clear and, possibly even went clear in the jump off, but there were just loads of faster people. So keep it within your control and put a deadline on it. So don't just go, I want to be, doing better in over the next couple of years. It's not a count. So though you've got 10 runs to improve it, then that's very much the data side of it. And that, by the way, that just bringing in that accountability, people are like, it is not going to sort out your balance. It is not going to give you a better eye to a fence. It's not going to sort out your position. But I swear to you, that level of focus is going to make you purposeful and it will raise your game. That accountability. AP McCoy rode more winners than anyone else, and he knew every day how many winners he needed to ride. That month, that year, he knew what records were where. Everything was measured. Numbers motivated him. If he didn't know how many winners there were in a season or how many winners he'd ridden that month, he wouldn't have ridden half as many winners. It drove him. It was there in the back of his mind every single day, powering him and driving him. So that's a big reason why the data works. In a sport that is as complex as any kind of equestrian sport, really, they are skill sports and they involve a horse. They are hugely about feel. They're hugely about skill. There's no putting a heart rate monitor on a horse. Useful for us in eventing, highly useful for people in racing, possibly not as useful in show jumping. It has a use, but it's not going to completely transform you. But video is the technology that we have used. People are videoing themselves all the time, but that is where we have partnered with On Form to get that real, you need feedback all the time. You really shouldn't. If you wanted to become a professional tennis player or a professional golfer, you would not spend as much time without professional feedback as most riders do spend their time practicing their mistakes at home in the arena. Like I certainly did anyway for decades. Just practice my mistakes, happily giving out about my horse that it couldn't do this, that, and the other, and then 10 years later realized that I was the problem. So that's what On Form is about. So that's kind of it, Nicole. We would bring that. I mean, there's all of the kind of comparative analysis, like how, for you to be able to, what you can do in eventing now is, particularly if you're one of our high performance clients, is you get a full array of all your metrics. You can see where your strengths and weaknesses are, and you can see where you sit in the population. So am I in the top 5%, the top 10%, the top 15%? That helps you to set your goals. That's what we're doing in the background in show jumping now, is being able to get all that comparative data, see what really matters in terms of what should be the metrics that we focus on. We'll probably start breaking things down into, related distances and oxers and verticals and left turns and right turns and all that kind of detail so that we can help to add more value. But I would just say to anyone starting off, start somewhere.
I think that's the thing, is having a target and that accountability. Will, I know that you've long been a fan of applying data to improve your performance as well.
Yeah, I try to record, faults per round, clear round percentage, and I always like to try and keep track of how much money you're winning per round, see if it's worth going to a show. So that's a couple of different things that I really like to look at, and I do myself. And yeah, I found it quite useful to look at. But it's like you say, it's trying to apply it into your performance and trying to apply it into how you're going to get better. And I think the way doing it of keeping a select amount of rounds rather than the whole thing or not too many, to then improve that through the year for us, because we're jumping so many more rounds, would be extremely helpful.
Have you ever been surprised? Have you ever actually calculated it and thought, God, I thought I was better than that, or actually that's better than I thought it was going to be?
A couple of times. I to sort of put into perspective of what I've looked at, and I've only looked at a very small sample, but like a really good international horse would jump about 40%, and anything like above that clear round, would be a lot better. And obviously the closer to, zero fault is obviously better. And there's, the one that surprised me the most, I looked at Explosion, which we all know is the best horse in the world. And if anyone wants to take a guess, how much money per round do you think he wins?
So that's Ben Mayer's
Explosion. Yeah. W. Yeah.
Okay. How much money per round?
If he was an event horse, it'd be about €100. But I don't know.
That's like a couple of mine are like that.
I'm going to say he's going to win £150,000 per round.
I go for lower than that. I go for about, I'd say 20. I'd say 50 would be amazing. 25 would be very good. So I'm going to shoot for about 40k, which is huge. No, that's probably too much as well. But yeah.
Well, it's £20,000, and that's including your schooling rounds you do at the start of the show, which is incredible. If you think they go in the ring around about 40 to 50 times a year, and every single time you go in the ring, you're winning 20 grand. That's pretty unbelievable. And that horse has jumped 75% clear around, and jumped clear in 2/3 of its Grand Prix has jumped, and that's just unbelievable compared to almost everything else.
That is pretty impressive.
Exactly.
I would have been,
well, I was thinking with your, probably a bit like where you were going, Nicole, when you look at your kind of your AC and Grand Prix and stuff like that, but you've got to factor in, as you say, well, that you're jumping in those warm-up rounds and stuff like that where there's very little prize money. So the average would be huge. I think sometimes it's the comparison that makes it incredible. Like if the good example is that clear rate. You say to someone, "Oh yeah, I'm jumping clear at a rate of 45% at Grand Prix level." Some people could look at you and go, "Oh God, you're jumping clear less than half the time." And then someone who's pretty knowledgeable is gonna know that it's a good number, but it could be right up there. It depends on the length of time. But if you were doing that consistently over like a 4-year period, like you're probably one of the best in the world. And it's knowing that, and then it gives you something to aim for, because so depending on your psychology, there will be some people who will get a wake up call from looking at their data, kind of a nasty reality check, and they're not actually usually the real high performance riders. The real high performance riders usually look at their data and go, "Oh God, I'm not half as bad as I used to be," and they're actually potentially kind of beating themselves up in the wrong areas. They're sometimes really vulnerable to chat, to dips in form that aren't real. I wrote an article once on why golf players change their swing when they shouldn't, and why tennis players change their coach when they shouldn't. When you've got to understand variance, that we kind of probably think of variance more as luck rather than chance, and we think that the time we hit a rail and it stayed in the cups versus the time we barely breathed on a rail and it fell down, that's kind of what luck is. But if you are in, you've warmed up and you're going into the ring, if you were to magically make that round occur 100 times, it's not going to pan out the exact same way every 100 times. And there's going to be quite a spectrum from clear rounds to the odd time when you slipped or spooked and, you know, ended up with 12 faults. You know, like there is proper variance at play. And you don't beat yourself up too much when you happen to get two poor rounds together, when actually, you know, you are riding pretty well and your horse is in pretty good shape. And you kind of got to stick to the system and stick to the process. But then there'll be other times when, no, you do need to change things up a little bit. So that's where it can help.
How about you, Holly? Is data something that you apply in your training?
We have done a little bit. We do get, on the World Class program, we do get percentages of our clear round rates. But again, what I would like to see a bit more of is why the faults are occurring, so that you can train more effectively. I'd like to study my videos more and decide what caused the faults and what type of faults are occurring the most. And again, be able to apply that more effectively. That would be what I would like to do. And I have thought about it before. You know, sometimes you get the horse out and you're riding away and you're thinking, you know, what exactly am I working on?
I'd say in show jumping though, Sam, that actually taking a video would be easier to a degree than in eventing, because you have literally a couple of minutes to get that round captured.
Yeah, exactly. And like Holly's fully on the right lines in terms of breaking it down. Like I think in skill sports, we need to test ourselves far more. Well, firstly, we don't break things down enough. So I'm nearly jumping a couple of steps ahead. Like if you were a runner, you've got your training, and then occasionally you'll do a fitness test or you'll do a speed test to see how much you've improved. We need to, like, basic stuff like accuracy. You know, you could be, and you know, for you, I think now with the frequency that at which kind of elite level jumpers jump, your eye is in pretty much most of the time. But for people getting going, they should be working on their accuracy all the time. They should be breaking it down to that level so that they can. That's why most faults for most normal people occur, is that they were just, you know, they weren't accurate enough. Like certainly in eventing, if you put your horse 2 yards away from every fence, you're going to jump an awful lot of clear rounds. It's that simple. And yet you could have people kind of getting fixated on other stuff. But you should also be testing straightness, you know, like how often, you know, the horse goes through the right shoulder on that, and that causes you to have a rail in the ring. Well, how often are you going through the right shoulder at home? How often is it there? And just breaking it down. I kind of have all of those attributes. You know, the kind of technique and power aren't quite as important, but I have all of my horses have a rating on technique and power, so that the ones that are weak in those areas, that I make sure that I kind of revisit it enough and make sure that the work I'm doing, you know, particularly with power, you know, am I making my horses stronger? And then does it matter? Like, again, there's no point in me really focusing on an attribute if it doesn't, you know, there's no point in me going, oh, I've got this horse now. He's so much better. He can jump a 140 oxer so much better. That's a massive fence for me, by the way, folks. Don't laugh at me. And I'm there going, oh, that really works. And then I go in the ring and I absolutely duff my stride to 3 fences. You know, that is, I should have been on my poles all week, which is what I had. Like, it took me up until my second World Games to walk out of the ring and go, I am not going into another show jumping stadium full of people and riding like I'm a pony club kid that my mother does not want to watch me or do, and go and hide in the bush. And it took me that long to go and like, I used to never, even at the time, I remember my show jumping trainer, again, after badmintons, after a couple of championships, being like, oh, we're going to do some pole work. And I was like, oh, I can't do poles with this horse. Just whatever, you know, for whatever reason. And he was like my only top horse as well, which was basically admitting that I'm just terrible at seeing a stride to an obstacle. But like, give me adrenaline and my Irish, you know, I'll hunt my way through everything. And I had to go, no, like precision is what I need, you know, detail, you know, being able to do it.
I do get a lot of people that I teach now who say that they can't count distances, and I used to be the same. actually, it really, really, really does matter for time allowed, for just helping the shape of your horse's jump, for all types of things. It really, really helps, and it's a skill that I've learnt, and it's really important. And it would be very similar to that.
How do you train it?
You have to find a way to do it. So, like, a lot of the time, I'll break distances down. So if it's an 8 stride distance, then I'll break it up into 4 and 4 or 5 and 3. Some people count up the number, some people count down the number, and do it over poles, so you're not punishing the horse either. It's something you've got to do it for hours a day. I don't know. I've always got areas where, I'm always trying to work on it, but you've got to find a way, basically.
Yeah, you need everything. Like cross country is a good example that people can go the other way and be they walk it and they walk it 10 times because they're like, oh, it's a little bit uphill. It's a little bit, and when I say a little bit uphill, like it's probably on the side of a hill. And they're like, oh, maybe he'll shorten and prop, or maybe he'll get carried, and and they're trying to work it out. And it's like, always be ready for plan B and different options.
Reactive
but you can
feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But the information, and if you have if you know that you can motor in and pick up the kind of first distance off the turn, line, keep moving, and do 1 stride less, like that could save you 2 or 3 seconds.
It's so much quicker. And if you're not having to interfere with your horse, they become more settled, they get tired less quickly. Yeah. I think being able to process what has happened as well. So you need to know whether you've taken a stride out somewhere, whether your horse is travelling very well, and you're coming up to a set distance, and that's, a red flag to really take a pull. Otherwise, you're going to have a tip up. It's interesting. I love studying stuff like that, and I think being able to react to it, to what has happened, is very important.
Well, and I think that it's probably in both our sports. I don't know yours as well, but we're probably not going to ask our horses to go much faster or to probably jump anything crazier. But I just think that our skill level is going to increase. Like we're jumping narrower, we're jumping tougher turns, tougher distances, and I think because. Look, every sport tends to improve and get better, and it's going to be in the detail, it's going to be in the skill, it's going to precision is the word that I use a lot as well. So I imagine it's similar.
I think they're really valid points, and actually I think in both, the quality and the expectations of everybody is getting higher and higher. And in eventing, for example, once upon a time, if somebody scored a 40 in old money, which is, what's a 40 in old money, Sam? 20?
I like to call it a personal best.
It's brilliant.
It's about 76%. No, 73%. So like a 27, 26.
26, 27. But a 40 in old money would have been like a really good score at 5-star level. And now your leaders will, generally speaking, be early to mid 20s.
Sub 25.
And they're all those sorts of marginal gains that have come across the board. Holly, Will, it has been absolutely fascinating to have you both on the show. I've thoroughly enjoyed our foray into show jumping, and I'm hoping, Holly, that we will be enjoying your eventing career in the coming years.
We'll see.
Is there an absolute favourite? Is there one event above all others that you'd go, actually, I'd really like to go to that one? Or are you not fussy?
I'm not too fussy. I mean, Burley's closer, so probably Burley, but I would settle for either, to be honest.
Save on the diesel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we will watch this space. Holly, thank you so much. And Will, thank you as well. It has been a pleasure to have you both on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sam, as always, a pleasure to have you alongside me. And we will look forward to welcoming you back, listeners, for another episode of the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast very soon. Don't forget, you can follow us at Eventing Podcast and go and find Holly and Will across social media as well. And then you can follow their careers throughout 2020 and beyond, because hopefully things are all getting back up and running again very soon. But for now, that is all we've got time for. And we will be back very soon with another episode of the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast. Thanks for listening.